Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. We are coming up on probably the biggest and most game-changing update Warzone has yet to see here in just a couple of weeks time, when we see the whole Vanguard integration and the Pacific update, where obviously we get the new map, we get the anti-cheats, and we get a bunch of new weapons that are probably going to dominate the meta. But as for right now, Warzone still has a pretty defined meta, I would say. Well, it is a lot more open and diverse than what we've seen in the past couple of months, just because of, you know, a lot of fine tuning and whatnot. There's still a handful of weapons that are extremely dominant as it stands right now. And today we're looking at those top 5 best loadouts to currently be using as we go through it all. If you enjoy the video at any point, let me know by dropping a like on it. It would be seriously appreciated. And of course, if you're new here or if you haven't already subscribed, feel free to do so. That way you can always guarantee you are up to date with everything going on in the world of Call of Duty. All right, so first up, this is going to be a combination of the MG82 and then also the Mac10. Real quick, we'll go over the perks and equipment because this is applicable on every single setup. As always, this is always the same for everything I run. For perks, we're looking at double time, overkill, and amped. Obviously, we want those 2 primary weapons off the rip. And then if I get the chance to grab that second loadout, either through buying another one or getting that free one at the end of the first zone or the start of the 5th zone, I'll go ahead and keep double time and amped, but usually switch over to something like restock or ghost if you like to run that, whatever the case may be. And then I'm always running Semtex and the stuns on there as well. Those are just my go-to personal preference for equipment, but really it comes down to what you want to run there. Now, talking about these weapons in particular, the MG82's TTK, as we know, is one of the best in the entire game over range. Doesn't matter if you're at 10 meters or at 110 meters, this thing will decimate everyone if you're landing your shots. Now, it does have the drawbacks of having some not so ideal recoil compared to some of the other weapons, but really in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's all that bad. If you mount with this thing, it pretty much takes away all the recoil and you can and will fry with it. Now, the setup here is going to be pretty basic and pretty straightforward. Agency suppressor is obviously keeping us off the map. We're going to be using this on everything today. We've got that vertical control, which is also super beneficial, and better range and velocity. You can't go wrong with that. Because of all the recoil nerfs this thing has seen over the course of time, I do run Task Force because it offers more control than the match grade would. It is a little bit slower, but hey, it's an LMG at the end of the day. You're not really focused too much on mobility, right? We also go ahead and run the 3x optic. I always get asked what optics I like to use. My go-to is always going to be the deep sea, sort of like blue dot reticle here that you get from the Dockside Killer bundle. And then going back to the final 2 attachments here, we got to have the Field Agent grip on there to help control that recoil even more. Then for the last one, people like to mess around with this. Some players will try and go for like the fast mag or the 125 round mag. Both of those are totally applicable. You could use those if you wanted to. Personally, though, I like to make this a little bit more aggressive and run the Raider stock and get a better strafing speed while you're moving, and that can actually be pretty beneficial in a you know, one-on-one or one-on-2 gunfight. You get that better mobility, sometimes better than some enemies, and that strafing can definitely help you out and help you secure that fight and get that win there. And then for the secondary here, we got the Mac10. This thing does not have the best TTK in the world when it comes to subs, but it is reliable. It's great for sniper support. You could use this up to like 20-25 meters without it severely dropping off like a lot of the other subs on this list will. Super easy control, great mobility, like all around. This is just a weapon that everyone is comfortable and familiar with, and it still does the job just fine. We're going for the basic Cold War copy and paste setup here. Agency suppressor. Of course, we got to go for the Task Force barrel. I am stored on the Tiger Team Spotlight here. It did receive a nerf a little while back, so it's not going to be as fast anymore, but it's still an absolute beast. We got the 53 round drum, and then finally we got the Raider stock as well. Like I said, the copy and paste Cold War setup. Now, loadout number 2 consists of the XM4 and then also the Modern Warfare MP5, little Cold War and MW action going on here, coinciding with one another. I mean, let's be real here. The Modern Warfare MP5 is the best Modern Warfare weapon in the game right now, by far the best Modern Warfare SMG, right? So this thing is still incredibly reliable even after all this time. And then the XM4 is just a ton of fun to use. Like, this thing is great up close, it's great at a medium range, and if you can get the control down and really master that recoil pattern, it's also great at long range as well. Like, this thing just fries. It's probably my favorite rifle in the game right now, just because it's easy, it's simple, you don't have to really work to use it, but it's still very strong and very competitive. So starting with the XM4 here, of course, we're going for agency yet again. I do go for Task Force in this case. If you wanted to run this a little bit more aggressive, Ranger would also work. You're not going to be as slow as using Task Force because this does have some more mobility cons, but you're also not getting as many pros out of it either. In some cases, you can go for the Field Agent grip, although I don't think it's entirely necessary all the time, so we'll come back to that in a moment. Of course, we got to run the 45 round mag. You could go bigger, but you are going to be a little bit slower. 45 is totally sufficient for me. We are going for the 3x optic yet again. Then it comes down to that final one where, like I said, if you want to focus on the control, if you're not super comfortable with the recoil here, run the Field Agent grip. However, if you know this recoil pattern without the grip, you don't have to use it just because the recoil I don't think is all that bad. Instead, run Raider pad, and you're good to go. You get that insane strafing speed. Yet again, great ADS, great sprint to fire. So like all around, this thing is again a very aggressive rifle that works well in a ton of different situations. Then for the MWMP5, we all know how this one's looking. Monolithic integral suppressor off the radar, better velocity and whatnot. We go for the Merc foregrip, get some better hip fire accuracy out of that. I also go for the 45 round mags. I like to run sleight of hand, not everyone does, but to me that faster reload just makes this more aggressive and more reliable up close. Then I also go for the collapsible stock as well to get that mobility boost, just because Modern Warfare weapon, it's going to be a lot slower than the Cold War sub, so you got to try and balance it out there. Now loadout number 3, probably my most used loadout in the game, the Cold War AK and the OTS. Two absolute demons in their respective categories. Cold War AK, probably the best overall weapon in the entire game. Easily the most versatile rifle between close, medium, and long range. And the OTS is just that absolute beast up close. Great TTK if you're able to land those neck and headshots. Fantastic mobility, great recoil. Like definitely probably the #1 go-to sub in the game right now. For the Cold War AK, this is a class setup we've talked about time and time again. We're going for the Groove Suppressor, of course. We got to go for the RPK barrel. That combination gives us the best range, best velocity, best control. I do still use the Spetsnaz here. The recoil is a little bit noticeable, especially in those medium and long range fights. It's not going to be super ideal there. I also go for the 45 round mags. Again, bigger is going to be slower. Not always the best in this case. 45, especially with this fire rate, is totally sufficient. And again, we're going for the 3x optic. Absolute banger of a long range class setup. And then on the OTS, again, it's going to be like basically the Cold War copy and paste setup. Groove Suppressor, Task Force barrel. In this case, I've actually been straying away from using the Tiger Team Spotlight. Instead, I'm going for the skeletal stock and getting some better ADS movement speed and sprint to fire out of that, which is super ideal. I go for the Serpent Wrap, which gives me a better ADS as well, so you're very, very snappy with this thing. Then, of course, you got to go for the 40 round fast mag as well. You could easily drop either the Serpent or the Skeletal for Tiger Team if you wanted that better mobility, but I mean, this thing flies and fries as is. You don't always have to be using that Tiger Team on there, just because it's not going to be as big of a difference as the better ADS and better sprint to fire would be with the attachments elsewhere. Now, loadout number 4, another super fun one that I've been enjoying lately, the EM2 and the Cold War MP5. The EM2 is that heavy hitting powerhouse right now that has terrible mobility and terrible control, but if you can master that, if you get the recoil pattern down and you know how and where to engage with this thing, you will erase everyone. The damage drop-offs on this thing are so forgiving. They're so much better than so many other weapons, hence why it's one of the best options in the game right now. And the Cold War MP5, insane TTK through about 12 meters, almost a 1-to-1 of the OTS, and depending on how you like this versus the OTS might, you know, sway your decision which one you want to use. By the way, you could flip-flop all the primaries and secondaries that we've covered so far on this video with each other. Doesn't matter too much, but as far as the EM2 goes, it's going to be that pretty standard rifle setup yet again. Agency and Task Force to start things off. You definitely want to be using Field Agent here just because that much more noticeable recoil. We're also going for the 3x optic yet again. I know, big surprise. Then lastly, I just go for the 40 round mag. Fast mags, not really it, hurting that ADS time, which is already not all that great, so just the standard 40 round is going to do just fine. And then when it comes to the Cold War MP5, I mean, this thing is a beast, but it's a little bit different from some of the other SMGs. So we're also going for agency suppressor. However, we don't use a barrel here. If you put that on, it's going to ruin your iron sights. It's going to give you the full circle instead of the semicircle, and it's also not going to help the control on this thing, which is already not all that good. Instead, I'm going for the bruiser grip, better movement, better hip fire accuracy. I go for the 50 round drum in this case, just because the fire rate's a little bit higher. You do run out of ammo a little bit quicker. I also go for the Raider pad stock here, and this is where you can sort of play around. I like to use the Tiger Team in this case, get some insane mobility between this and the bruiser grip, or if you wanted to, throw on that Serpent Wrap instead of the Tiger Team and you get a really good ADS. But overall, this is like an absolute beast of a setup, and the TTK is utterly insane. And then lastly today, we've got the C58 and the PPSH. The C58 is still a very reliable rifle. It's not as dominant and as strong as it was, you know, a couple months back, but it is still one of the more powerful weapons we have in the game. The control, I feel like, is still very easy, and I'm very familiar with this weapon, as are a lot of players, hence why it's still one of the most used. And the PPSH has really sort of risen in rank recently. People are figuring out, hey, this thing's DPM is insane. You got the 71 round drum on there, great mobility, great control, like all around. This thing is perfect for playing duos, trios, quads, and just smoking everybody, and obviously solos as well, but it's especially noticeable in those larger team-based modes. But starting on the C58 here, again, agency suppressor and task force barrel are going to be the go-tos. I do still run field agent here just because the recoil has been nerfed a couple of times over the course of time, so that's definitely a helpful attachment to have on there as always. I go for the 45 round drum over the 50 just because it's a lot more snappy and I like that quicker ADS, and of course we're going for the 3x optic once more here. Then looking at the PPSH, this again is going to be that standard copy and paste. Grew suppressor as always, task force on there too. I am still running Tiger Team on here as well for that better movement speed. We got the 71 round drum, which has surprisingly good cons considering it's this big of a mag. And of course, we got the Raider stock on there too. So all around, some fantastic setups today. C58 PPSH, beast of a setup, as is the EM2 and the Cold War MP5. Cold War AK OTS, probably my favorite in the game. XM4 and MW MP5, one of the easiest to use. And then the MG82 and the Mac10 is just a powerhouse and speedy as can be. So can't go wrong with any of these. That is going to do it for today though. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, or if you found the video helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it. It would be seriously appreciated. And of course, if you're new here or if you have not already subscribed, feel free to do so. That way you can always guarantee you are up to date with everything going on in Call of Duty. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy. Have an awesome rest of your day. And I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.